Hey guys, it's your boy Ankur. I'm back with another episode of the Flexwork Studios podcast. Today we have an amazing remote guest. His name is Ani Simmons. How's it going, Ani?
Doing fantastic, Encore. Thanks for having me on.
How did I do with the enunciation?
You actually got it spot on, which is something that doesn't really happen often. So
Yeah,
it's great.
it helps. You know, the melanin, it just like gives you extra
Right,
vowels that most people don't have. And you just go with it.
right. Yeah, because I've been called Annie, Anai, everything. Like my whole school year, my growing up, it would be, is Annie here? Is she in the classroom?
Oh
So
man, I remember the first day of class growing up in elementary school. The teacher would just like look at my name and just like want to skip it and just go to the next person.
right,
And I should be
right,
looking around and be like, did she not say my name? Like, what just happened? It was an
yeah,
interesting whole timeline for sure.
right. No, well now I love the fact when people take the time to pronounce it, and after a long time I hid from the name because it wasn't pronounced properly. So
What name did
it,
you go
it
with? Did you have like a secret, like white
yeah,
public
of
approved
course.
name?
Yeah, Anthony.
Anthony. Oh, look at
Anthony
that.
was my name for a
So
very long time.
I was 3.5. I scored a goal in soccer and the coach
Hmm.
couldn't say my name. So he started calling me Ace. He's like, you're my ace. And then it
Really?
just stuck because I was like, I would spend summers with my cousins and stuff and so on and so forth. And
Hmm.
so then my
Hmm.
cousins called me Ace growing up. I was a DJ because I'm
Okay.
an Indian guy from New Jersey. So of course I picked up turntables and like started
Right.
DJing at some point. So then my DJ
Okay.
name was DJ Ace. My
But that's a cool name.
my AOL Instant Messenger was Ace and like everything else that went with it. So
Right. So you just ran with it.
I just ran with it. It stuck with me for a long time.
Ace is cool. I could have stuck with Ace. Somebody would have called me Ace. I would have took that. I would have kept that one too.
So you got to tell me, man, why is it that a guy has your career journey? Because I read through all the notes, right?
Hmm.
There
Okay.
was a massive pivot in your
Hmm.
journey and the direction that you were taking, and I feel like the audience that I have, they're going to gain so much perspective from today's podcast on like
Hmm.
why someone makes a pivot, why this new journey that you're on is so important to you. We should just like break it all down for them.
Well, I think it's really based on was I really finding happiness? Was I experiencing happiness based on the accomplishments that I had done? Opening up several businesses, owning different businesses, having a lot of real estate. And I just felt like as I was getting older, I was feeling incomplete, unconnected to, more importantly, my children.
Mm.
And it led me to say, well, what is it about me that is not connecting with my children? What is it that I may have experienced? What is it that I'm missing that's causing this disconnection? So I was out having a casual drink with a couple of buddies, and one of my buddies said to me, we were talking about our families and children, and he said, man, the sins of the father will be visited upon the son. And because he was having troubles with his son. And it just sat with me. We sat there for about 20 minutes and just contemplated the comment. And I thought about my son's struggles in life. He was graduated from college, and was just struggling to find traction in his career. And I was saying, Dad, is it my fault?
Ani,
Is
you're
it
like
is it my
26. How old could your son be?
I wish I was 26. I'm 54. I'm
You are
54
not
years old.
54. Get out of here.
Yeah, 54 years old. My son is
Okay. All
coming up
right.
to
So
33.
grown son struggling to find a
Hmm.
career path.
Yeah, struggling, and he was making mistakes that I was able to identify that I had in terms of not being decisive, not um, taking the time to really think things through, not having a real ability to critically think and do deductive reasoning. And I was saying, well, these things that I passed on to him, was it an inherent trait? Is it a biological trait, or is it just something that I missed throughout my coming up? And then I started to really think about it and thought about, wow, like this was my life. Like, and now is he being punished because of the mistakes that I made? You know,
So what was the first actionable step after that?
was to really dive deeper into understanding the connection between what I was doing, what I was going through, and what he was going through. And in taking that time to really think about it, it became clear that yes, the things that I neglected within myself turned into things that he had to suffer through. because I couldn't teach him things that I had not cognizantly understood about myself. I couldn't teach him to be mindful. I couldn't teach him to take his time and think through a problem. I could tell him, but I couldn't teach him because I didn't have a clear understanding of how it was and what caused it and why my mother and my father's relationship with me caused me to be impulsive, caused me to hide from responsibility. And now here I was doing the same thing to him unbeknowingly. And I now was able to identify that this is what he was suffering through.
So I gotta ask you, man, do you think the age you were at when you had him, like if you were to have him today, rather than having him when you were in your mid-20s, would that have changed how you approach fatherhood?
100%. But I will say I probably, because I'm still learning and growing, I may have still done things incorrectly because I don't have all the answers, unfortunately. But I would have definitely done a better job because I am very much more aware of just even how I talk to him, how I talk to my younger son, because I have a younger son now, and the love and the patience that I can show on my younger son, I didn't have with my older son. I was very short tempered. I was a young man in business, very straightforward, very blunt, very aggressive. So a lot of my tonality was, what did I say to do? Do it. This is what's going to happen to you. If you don't do it, you're going to fail. And he received that as a undue pressure on him, which it was, because I tied his worth to an accomplishment as opposed to him just being worthy, whether he messed up or didn't mess up or listened to me or didn't listen to me. He still was valuable, but I didn't understand it at that time.
It's so amazing. We have a whole team here at Flexwork that literally will curate the right types of guests for the podcast and the people that we're going to interview. And there's like literally 6 or 7 of us that they could choose for who's going to be in the hot seat. And they were like, it has to be you, Encore. You're the one to talk to Ani. And I'm just like trying to understand what was the thought process in their minds when they're like partnering me with the people that I'm going to be interviewing and talking to. The last one was a man who, after having a DUI, ended up killing someone and then went to jail, and his whole journey of like finding forgiveness and everything, it had to do with something from my like history and my past and everything. I didn't have to kill anyone, but I had a DUI type situation.
Right.
Similarly, right now, my wife and I are in the process of starting a family, and we've been going through it because it's a journey, right? We got married late in our lives, and that whole process of like how things might be more complicated, it is what it is. But, it's something I think about constantly, right? My parents and my father and how I was raised and the expectations of how I was raised, the lessons, the questions, the complexes that I have. And I've probably been through 6 years of therapy at this point right now, trying to understand how I can break those bonds and those chains and the trauma and everything that goes with it. But it makes total sense why they would pick us to have this conversation. Because I always wonder, what am I really getting out of the therapy and what am I really getting out of the discussions that I'm having? I think at the end of the day, there's like this journey of being consciously ignorant. Like I'm totally aware now that I have an emotional lack of awareness in certain situations and that I need to make some adjustments, right? And then I'm even more aware that there are subconscious, what's the word for it? Bias that I have towards scenarios that will come up, whether it'll be a comparison of my wife's culture to my culture. Because my family tends to be a little more North Indian. My wife is Sri Lankan, which tends to be a little more South Asian, and like their South Indian kind of culture and everything goes with it. And when I catch myself in these like discrepancies where I have a clear bias that's been implanted in me from how I was raised and whatever needs to happen, I always just try to think through this and like, how can I possibly get to the other side of this? Because I now just became consciously ignorant. Like, okay, look, there's a clear pattern and a problem, and this will definitely extend into the next generation if I don't do something by opening up my mind, creating empathy with how I approach the topic, and then understanding that my choices will be a direct reflection of how this next generation sees everything. But like,
100%.
Ani, who the hell out there has the answers? I talk to these therapists and they're like, what do you think? And I'm like, no, this isn't the way the direction goes for a guy like me. Give me some cheat
Right.
codes. I need to understand.
Right.
Like, listen,
Mhm.
okay, if you just hug the kid like three more times a week, he won't have the same problems that you have. I'm like,
Right.
perfect. I can do that, right? I can schedule these hugs. I can make all this stuff work. But like, there's no cheat code to this.
No, because each individual is different, right? You know, each child is different. They have different needs. They're a unique spirit. They're a unique individual that is going to require a certain touch that the other child may not require. And you have to be cognizant enough and aware enough to say, hey, I see what your personality is and I see what you need. And I'm going to be aware enough to give it to you and take the time to see it and not be stuck within the bounds of what we were brought up with. Because I'm sure me and you're coming from like someone like probably the same background in terms of much stricter parents.
Yeah, I got beat. You know? We don't got to question that. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
So basically, right? We know, right? That corporal punishment when you got out of bounds was there, right? And so it was a fear all the time. It was all of these different things, and now
but
that
Ani, I got away with it more often than I got caught.
Did you?
Yeah, for sure. I'm from Jersey, right? Like it's in our culture to figure out how to manipulate the scenario that's around us.
Oh man, listen, I got it, and it's just sharing it with you, man. I got it bad, man. I got it bad, like, and that was so I had a lot of rage growing up because of that, and I shifted that rage onto authority. So I was against authority in school, the law. It didn't matter what it was. I just did not like anybody trying to impose anything on me that I did not choose myself. And I know now that it was a direct reflection of and I forgive my mother. So I want to just say that, you know, I don't want to move on without acknowledging that I understand she was in her limitations of understanding. She didn't understand what she was doing, but her aggression towards me, the person that was supposed to keep and hold me and protect me, did the opposite. You know, abuse me. I'm talking about, you know, I was like in fear half the time, totally self-conscious, unloving of myself because I just thought that I really, you know, man, I'll tell you one time on call, I was young. This is and you probably could relate to this. I had an Evel Knievel. You remember you wind it up, you put the motorcycle inside, you wind it, and it takes off, and right. So I had an Evel Knievel toy. This was young. I was in elementary, middle school. I take the toy to school to show my friends. Obviously, I want to show them Evel Knievel. Teacher calls my mother. My mother comes up and gives me a beating in front of the whole class. Never was able to live that down. It was the most traumatic. I met people 15, 20 years. I'm going to say this one girl. I met her almost 20 years later. You know what she said? I remember you from school when you got that beating in class.
No way.
And this is how traumatic, not only it was for me, but imagine the children who saw me sitting there getting whipped in that class. And it was like these things. So how would that transfer? Obviously, it transferred into so many parts of my life because I had to now meet everything with violence. So I was this, you know, rugged, aggressive guy who inside was terrified of everything. My only way to compensate was to just go a level above violence, right? I had to just go be aggressive because I didn't know how else to, I didn't have any in between. And it was just, so when you say like, you know, how do we do, there is no blueprint. There is no answer. There is no thing other than what I would say is love. Love is just undefeated. You got to love on the other person. You got to have enough empathy, enough love to listen and watch and take time before you react. And that's what I had to learn because I tell you, I was impulsive. So I didn't give anybody a chance to correct themselves. If they were wrong, I immediately jumped on it. Hey, what are you doing? And it didn't work because I had a really rough relationship with my older son. Like one day he and I sat down and I asked him, you know, how was it? Like, how was it? Like, what do you feel I've done that's caused you. And he kind of told me, like, you were always on the move. I understand you were trying to provide. You weren't with my mom, but you always gave me money. You always took care of us and stuff. But you were never there. And then when you were there, I felt like you were always judging, waiting for me to make a mistake so you could correct me. Like, it wasn't a nurturing. It was a waiting to say, you did it wrong. Let me show you how to do it. And it psychologically impacted him for even to this day. I would say a very long time, but he's 33 right now. And we had a discussion probably maybe 6 months ago. We had a discussion about it. And he was just like, as much as I've forgiven you, I'm not over it, because it still affects me, even in my relationships with women, with my job. It's still affecting me in ways that I don't even know how. And that was one of the reasons that really made me dive in and say, I got to understand how this trauma works. Because I got a job to do. I have to fix that. I have to fix what I broke. I can't leave it, because otherwise he's going to pass it on to the next generation. And then my grandchildren will go through the same thing.
That's a lot of weight to carry, man.
It's a lot of weight to carry. But I thank God he gave me big shoulders. It's the only thing I could do. I got to wear it.
All right. Well, for a second, let's look at the other side of the argument,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm only curious to hear this other side, because, you put out content on what you're speaking about regularly, right? But this
Mm-hmm.
other side of the argument of, we're supposed to be men who raise warriors, right? Who know how to be gentle in the garden, right? That whole idea, wouldn't you rather be a warrior in the garden than a gardener at war? But then, sometimes I wonder if, this culture of, gentle parenting and, leading with empathy 100% of the time prevents that opportunity for anyone to get that warrior in them, right? I'm only who I am in business because of how I was raised, right? And I'm confident in understanding that I have a couple weaknesses. I'll always feel like I'm not enough. No matter what conversation I'm in, whether it's with staff, whether it's with my partner, whether it's with my parents or friends or whatever, right? There's always this scenario where it's just I could have done more to make this person happy.
Right.
But that instinct created my ability to be a phenomenal leader who puts my people first, my family first, all the sacrifice that I make, everything that goes with it. Now, am I right, wrong? I don't know. But I have accomplished a lot in my life because of that warrior instinct and that desire to just constantly persist no matter what obstacle is in front of me. And I don't know if you've had a chance to do research on me, but I was extremely successful and I lost everything multiple times and I had to start over. I mean, we're not talking about I made a couple million, lost it all, then I had to come back. I made hundreds of millions of dollars, lost it all, almost lost my own way, and I had to find my path back to how I could rise up again. But that's also a fear, this idea of gentle parenting. And then do I want my kids to, what do they say? When men grow up are weak men create hard times creates strong men, right? And the strong men create easy times. And this is never ending cycle. So how does that work? What's your opinion on that side of it?
There is truth to it. I just had this conversation with a buddy of mine. We can't make it to the heights that we make it to without some of the toughness that comes from the experiences that we've had. My thought is to find a balance. It's just, what I think is that we went through the extreme, right? We went through the extreme, and the extreme produced good results. It helped us to be able to live in a society that was constantly trying to get at us, constantly trying to hold us down, constantly trying to attack us, right? And that resilience was born from some of that tough love we got.
We got to touch on that society aspect after you're done with your thought, though.
Absolutely. Would I have just liked a little bit more hugs? Yeah. I think I would I have still been able to be a fearless leader with a few more hugs? Yeah, I think I would have, And so it's a balance. I would never take away everything that we've gone through, Encore. I just wouldn't. I believe that if we probably, and I read a lot of founders books, right? Of founders who have started major companies. And from back in history, they all have gone through this rough life, parenting, rough, environments to get to be this fearless leader. So I understand the connection that is necessary. I just want to find a way that, because I believe that there has to be a happy medium, that it doesn't have to all be pain. And that's what I want to avoid. I want my son to be tough. I want him to go in the trenches. I want him to fight. I want him to be resilient. I want him to have that. But I also want him to know he's worthy. I also want him to know he's loved in a wide way, in a impactful way, in an encompassing way. I want him to know that, it doesn't, because I do not want him to do to his children what I've done to him. I do not want him to do it. As much as I want his children to be warriors, and I want them to be wealthy, I do not want them to question, am I enough? Am I worthy of this accomplishment? You know what I mean?
I do, man. But you know what I struggle with? And great, I'm going to publish this and there's going to be 100,000 people, there's going to be millions of impressions and so on and so forth. And I'll probably
Right.
sleep on the couch for what I'm about to say. But my wife could never understand the beating that a man takes in this world, especially one who chooses to be a leader or CEO and all the things that come with it and every aspect of it. Yeah. So then this fear of I don't want my kid to be soft, right? It's something that's always going to be in the back of my mind because I want them to be prepared for all the craziness that life is going to throw at them. And you and I will understand this. All right. I mean, granted, I think there's a privilege to being South Asian in this country where you and I had different experiences, but it's still not perfect no matter how we look at it. Right. And there's certain preparation your children have to know how to handle situations. And so I don't know. I don't know how to have those conversations with my wife. And I don't know how to broach the topic, especially because internally I know I have bias on any one of these aspects, right? And when you want to have a conversation like this, even in a group of friends, you don't want to be judged for saying the wrong thing in the direction of where that goes. So give me some advice. I mean, I'm going to look to you as an older brother in that conversation. How do I approach things like that?
That's a beautiful question, man, because that is something that my partner and I have been working on in one of our programs, is how do men of leadership and of influence keep their wife part of that, so that they don't lose their wife, because that's what will usually break up a very successful man, is because his wife is totally disconnected from the journey and in parenting and everything else. So it's about including, put it like this, I would say they'll never truly understand what it means to be us. They just can't. This is an experience. I always liken what you and I have gone through as a spiritual experience that is unique to our life, right? Evolving, understanding who we are. We can never teach them everything that we've had to experience. It's just not possible. It's just not possible. So what we can do is at least help them to identify with the struggle so they can be a part of the softness, the side that we need from them, and bringing them in their capacity to understand and heal and work with us in this, because we need them. They're the balance to our psychotic, crazy lives. When we come home, that's sanctuary. But if they don't understand what their role is in the sanctuary, or in that place when we come back home, then they're not going to be empathetic to our journey. But we have to communicate it with them and say, hey, listen, I'm out here at war. Business is war. I'm at war every day. When I come home, I would love to just be able to sit down and offload to you or talk to you or hear your story, but you got to give me a little bit of time. Or you got to, whatever it is that we need as the leaders. And this is where I say, it's difficult, because the beauty is that I say, and I know a little bit about, your culture in regards to women understand that they're supposed to be supportive. Whereas, unfortunately, a lot of the Western women don't. They've lost that connection. And I apologize to your audience who may go crazy on me, but they've lost that understanding that they're supposed to, there's a role that we all play. There's a role, and the role changes,
So let's assume, for the purposes of getting advice on this, that they are as equally aware of their importance, their role, and everything that goes with it.
Mm.
For guys like us, the problem that I often see my friends that are also in leadership roles with kids and so on and so forth deal with, which I'm also trying to figure out how I handle now, is when I go home from the battlefield, I hide my scars because I don't want to bring that home. Right. And so I roll my sleeves down. No one's seeing what's happening, and whatever needs to happen. When I'm home, my partner and that home also needs to feel safe, right? And I can't bring all that craziness from outside to the crib, right? But then, man, the balancing game is exhausting, right? And trying to figure out the answers of holding on to that weight on your shoulders of like how not to cross the line with parenting when it comes to your children out of fear of where it's going to go, or how to balance the fear from my wife of like, hey, if he lets out that beast and teaches our kids something that he thinks is right, but I hear all these horror stories of these kids who are traumatized because of the dad not being able to break that generational curse, or however we look at it.
Right.
Why is it gotta be so hard?
I would say life is hard, man. It ain't never been easy. I don't think for no culture in history has it been easy. I think this is something that we figuring out. And
why weren't we prepared for this?
Like, I wish that I could answer that. My parents weren't prepared. They what were they taught? And this is part of the journey that I've been on. Is I had to look at it. So in order for me to forgive my mother and my father, I had to say, well, what did y'all go through? And then I come to learn that my father, his father, took his mother from South Carolina, brought her to New York because my grandmother died at 106. So she was still and she died at 106 back in 2007. So you got to think, so she was around in the 1800s, right? She was directly influenced by slavery. Like, her parents, so she saw it. She saw that level of racism, right? So what did my father get from a mother who was there in that stages, and a father who literally had to take his wife and run out of South Carolina because he was being threatened? What was he going to teach me? Hide. Be small. Get small. Don't be big. Don't show yourself as who you are because they're going to come after you. Don't speak your voice because they're going to. So what could he teach me, Uncle? What could he really? He was only teaching me within the limits of his own fear. He was in his own box. Yeah, he couldn't give it to me. It was tough.
So our generation is going to carry this weight of having to figure out how to break those chains. Because, no different. My grandparents were in India when it was British rule, right?
Right.
They didn't get free till 1947. And you can just imagine how that affected generations and so on and so forth. 100%. And then my parents left the country that they knew with dollars in their pockets to come to a brand new place to have to create life and everything that goes with it. And I can't even comprehend what type of hardship that is, right? But I guess every generation has some type of insane obstacle that they have to get through, right? And for our parents, it was probably survival, having enough money to feed the kids, having enough money to have the roof over everyone's head, escaping whatever curses their parents put on them, which I'm sure we probably can't even begin to comprehend the different aspects of that, right?
Yes.
And then ours is EQ. That's our battlefield of figuring out how to establish a level playing field.
Right.
What do you think the next generation's battlefield is going to be? Is it going to be balance of AI versus humans? Is it going to be a balance of okay, I don't think EQ is a problem for the kids that I talk to, my nieces, my nephews, so on and so forth. They have it.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think that they have their own unique challenges, as we did. Us coming up in an era of music, media influencing us,
Good
they're gonna
music.
have good music,
Yeah. Not
beautiful
this new
music, right?
stuff.
And not this new, and not, but now they have to deal with the new stuff. They have to deal with the social media likes. They have a whole nother challenge. And I was talking to a therapist, and this is what she told me. I asked her, how do I protect my children from what's to come, from social media influences? How do I do that? And she said, the only way is to give them supreme confidence. You have to make them so confident that they don't follow, that they don't need the approval of another person, because that's all social media is. The approval causes you to do things, sell your body, do these things, do silly pranks, hurt yourself because you want approval. But if you already approve of yourself, you won't give in as easily to those influences. So she said that's the core, is to create, and the way to do that, she explained to me, was by giving them the ability to think critically, to really work through their thoughts and be able to discern, is this the right thing? What are going to be the consequences if I make this choice? But that comes from a confidence that she said you have to do little small things right now, which is when they come and they ask you something, tell them no, go figure it out. Don't answer the question for them, because it takes away their ability to work through that problem. Don't coddle them. Don't give them. So it's like, this is where the balance comes in, because I say, I want to coddle them because I've done so much damage to the older children. I want to coddle them. And she's like, no, it's a balance. Don't coddle them, but give them a little bit more respect that they can figure that out. Give them a little bit more courage to explore their world and not need to shield them, because now you're worried about the mistakes you already made and now you're trying to cover them with all the things. Don't do that. You know what I mean? So when she told me that, it was like a clear, this is a new world they're up against, because it's a battlefield that I'm not on. I'm not on that battlefield of social media in that way. I don't know what it feels like to go in school and know that this was said about this person online and this is happening and she got 20 likes and this person, I don't know what that's like. It's a whole new world for them, So
Don't lie
we
to
gotta.
me. You know exactly what it's like to get the likes. I've seen your social media content. We know what you're up to behind that
Yeah,
iPhone.
you see, and hopefully I don't have. I try not to look at it because I don't want to have to live by it. Like, I
Yeah.
don't want to be like, if I didn't get a like, is what I'm saying not relevant? I have to have enough confidence that what I'm saying is so relevant. And that's why I say this is about me, and all my posts, this is about my journey. I'm much as I'm doing it because I want other people to resonate with the journey. This is really to heal me, so that if one person takes something that I says and treats their child a little bit better, or stops doing something to their child, stops criticizing them at every turn, stops tying their worth to their grades. If one person does that, then I feel like, okay, somebody's gotten something from me. And at the same time, I'm getting something from myself, because I'm relieving this burden. I'm in somewhere in my heart, I feel like it's getting lighter. It's getting lighter because I've had a heavy heart because of this journey. I've had a heavy heart.
What's incredible about conversations like this, I almost always find the silver lining where I realize my parents were somehow so far ahead of their time with how I was raised. I was an only child, and I remember vividly scenarios where my parents made me go figure things out.
Beautiful.
Right. I didn't even understand how ahead of the times my parents were and how I was raised. Like, my mother would take me to the grocery store and she would train me how to pick the appropriate fruits and vegetables, how to know soft, hard, shiny, matte, so on and so forth. Like, what is going to be the appropriate thing to go buy? My parents would have me manage logins. Like, I make this joke that I was the head of the family at the age of 5. Right. Because I was the one making decisions and planning itineraries. But, like, obviously it was just one little small piece of whatever the itinerary really was, but they gave me full control. And I mean, that was obviously all intentional, right? Someone must have explained to them for them to break some of the molds for me that you had to let me figure out my decisions. Cause I'm sure my parents wanted to just give me all the answers, but they didn't. But
That's
like,
beautiful.
damn, how did I only figure that out at 39? That like
That's
my
beautiful.
parents like had the foresight to make some of those decisions. And obviously they weren't perfect, but
Mm-hmm.
like they did not just the best that they could, but they did a pretty good job at the end of the day to turn me
Yeah,
into who I am today.
absolutely. Absolutely. They did a great job. They did a great job giving you that encore. That them doing that, you need to, if you can, you need to praise them for that, because that is a beautiful thing that they gave you. Because believe me, if you saying that their influence on you is part of what's making you successful, that's a huge part of it. Them giving you that leeway to make those decisions, to feel like I am the man of the house at 5. You know what kind of confidence that gives a child when he reaches 10,
Yeah, I mean,
15?
I do know I lived it.
Yeah,
Right.
that is amazing. That is beautiful. I wish that I would have had the awareness to do that for my son when he was a kid, because I could see where that would have benefited him like immensely, to feel this confidence that I can do it, and not always feel like I'm waiting for my father to tell me I did it wrong. Like he's looking over his shoulder. I'm just waiting for him to tell me I didn't do it right. And it's a super uncomfortable feeling. Super uncomfortable. I can only imagine. You can imagine.
Okay, so let's talk about a different direction here. I have some friends who I think are terrible parents, and I have some friends who I think are amazing parents. Right now,
Right.
I only get to see like this 30-minute or like 3-hour window of them parenting in comparison to the
Mhm.
rest of what they're really going through.
Right.
What do you think is appropriate in terms of like posing questions and having that conversation with other people? When is the right time to ask for advice, or maybe even give
Mhm.
some advice?
I'm going to say your level of friendship with them matters, right? Because obviously you don't want to be intrusive on somebody else that you're not close with. So for me, um, the brothers that I associate with, we've reached a level of comfort with each other that I would be able to tell them, like, hey, you might want to take it easy. Like, did you give him this? Did you let him give him a chance to try to explain this to you? But I think you as a friend, you sound like you would be a really great friend to have, right? And I think that you, they should know that whatever you say is coming from love. It's coming from a concern and a care for them. You're not doing it to criticize, to judge, and I think if they know that, if they can genuinely say, hey, I know Encore cares about me, he cares about my children, he cares about something, and he must know something. So let's have an open conversation. And I think brothers, men, need to find spaces where they can communicate. They need to come into groups or be out with each other, whether that's out having a drink, whether that's out having a cigar, whatever it is, and have open conversations. But there has to be a trust and a respect for each other, right? And if that's there, I would say pour in, pour in. Don't hesitate, because again, you don't want to watch him do something that you might know is going to damage that child, right? And he's going to be like, "Well, why didn't you tell me that? Why did you tell me that? Why did you tell me that a year ago, 2 years ago?" So I would openly tell him. I would tell
I always feel like it's different with kids. You know how like the friend finally breaks up with that person, and you're like, I never liked that
him.
person anyway, and they're like, Why didn't
Right,
you tell me? You could have saved me
right,
these like 3 years of my life. But you can't do
right,
that with parents and kids.
right.
So
It's
and
definitely
I
touchy.
don't have a kid yet, right? So there are
Mhm.
things that get thrown in my face like you don't even know what it's like,
Mm,
right?
mm.
I remember I like watched a podcast about how you shouldn't give kids an iPhone when they like will be too dependent on technology and so on and so forth. And then like I'm at my cousin's house and like this kid is just complete tantrum. They hand them an iPhone. I'm like, you shouldn't do that. And I'm like trying to give them a lecture. And they just like roll
Mhm.
their eyes at me. It's like you have no idea what it's like. And then it's
Right.
like, okay, granted, I didn't approach that with the appropriate tactfulness that I probably should have, because I
Right.
clearly need to ask more questions. Like, hey, is it really
Mhm.
like that all the
Mhm.
time?
Right.
Obviously they know more about it than I do. They know
Mhm.
more because I'm sure, they brought the organic diapers and they were like, we're not going to have the cell
Right.
phone in our kids. But at some point, decisions have to change for whatever reason. But
Mhm.
it's just an interesting conversation when you find like minded men that honestly just want to better themselves. and have
Right.
conversations like the one that you and I are having.
Mhm.
And I'm sure this wasn't the direction you thought the podcast was going to go in, but
No, it's beautiful. I like it. I like it, the fact that we're just having a regular conversation. Two guys, one expectant father who's working on it, and one father who's had a couple of different tries. And every time I feel like I've gotten better. I've gotten better, and I think
well, I
that
mean,
you
you can always
got
have
it.
number 4 or number 5, right?
I got five.
You got 5 kids? Well, number 6, you could get it right on the 6th try.
Oh, the sixth one. No,
Yeah.
no. Listen, here's what I'll say. The last two, fantastic human beings. Fantastic, because I was aware my spirituality had grown, my patience had grown, my love had grown, and I was able to pick my battles. We don't got to argue about that. You want that? Go ahead. Just go ahead and do it. Now I know how to plant seeds. You see? Okay, we'll go try that. And then when you come back crying, I can now say, all right, well, I let you do it. I told you, but you tried it. Now you know what to do, what not to do. And what did you learn? And I asked the question, what did you learn? What did you learn from that? Okay, great.
The stove is
And
hot. I shouldn't touch the stove. I get it.
right,
I get it.
right. You did mention that the fire was hot. Yeah, I did. But you had to figure out for yourself. And now now you know. But now you know. You don't believe. You actually know it for sure that fire is hot. And I love this. So with like my youngest children, like I got remarried, and my younger children, who are 10 and 13, just watching them, and because I know I'm cognizant now and I'm aware, watching the decisions that they make and how they make them, it's been beautiful. And I know that my older children, I'm sure they're going to watch, are probably mad that they didn't get the same, the same grace
Yeah.
that the younger ones got,
But now
But
they
I
have
tell them,
unlimited access to your credit cards.
right,
Right?
that's
There's
what I got to
pros
do
and
now.
cons to however we look at
Right.
this.
They did get a lot more. They did get a lot more, So I hope it's a balance. And I've actually spoken to them. I've spoken to them candidly about it. Like, listen, I apologize. I know that I wasn't. I've actually sat my sons down and told them, I really apologize to y'all. Like, I apologize for being that way. And I want y'all to know, like, I understand that I've made these certain mistakes, and I ask that you just forgive me. I don't even want to justify it, which I could. I could tell you about how my family treated me. I could tell you about all these things, but I'm not. I want you to just take what I'm saying to you and just say, I really apologize. Any way that I can now correct those things, any way that I can help you now in your current lives, I'm here to do that. That's my goal now, is to give back and correct those mistakes that I made, because we want to, generational wealth isn't really just about money. It's
So
about something else.
why don't I open the floor, see if you got any questions for me?
Here's what I would like to know from you, because I think this is really interesting, is the cultural differences, right? In your culture, education is a high priority, right? Is that something that your family put on you? How did they impose that on you? Was it a free will, or was it you have to go to school, you have to do it? How was it for you?
Okay, so there's a caveat to this. My dad was a math professor in India for several years before he came to America, and then went into computer science and everything that he went on beyond that. And then my mother was an accountant in India before she came over here and had to change career paths and so on and so forth. So we have to appreciate that my parents were like math whizzes. So at a very young age, like I started learning like the multiplication tables and division and addition and subtraction and so on and so forth. And English really came from TV and being here and talking to people and so on and so forth.
Right.
But math was one of those things where I was always drastically advanced, because in a slow yet cementing way, I was far ahead of everyone in my grade when it came to whatever was going on, to the point where, I was the smart Indian kid who would finish a math test in like 5 minutes. And like everyone else is, doing a full hour. And then it wasn't until we left Queens and went to New Jersey where we found Gifted and Talented, where I could then be with a group of other kids that were also really fast in math and what they were doing. Right. So, I mean, was it free will? Was it not free will? I don't know. I enjoyed it. Now, had I not enjoyed it, would my parents have like beaten it into me? I don't know. I didn't have that experience maybe
Mhm.
they knew how to make it fun for me.
Okay.
I don't remember being incentivized. Like if you finish this, you can then play video games, or if you finish this, you then get this treat or anything like that. But I don't
Mhm.
know. A lot of that childhood is a blur for me now when I really try to think through it because of all the other aspects of the trauma and whatever my brain decided to like just block out for me not to remember. But what I can say is that at a certain point, it wasn't about my parents, and it was more
Mhm.
about my competition with my cousins
Really?
because it was weird with my grandparents. I wouldn't get the love that I wanted from them because I wasn't the golden boy. And
Mm.
there was a guy in my family that was considered the golden boy, and everyone gave him the love of being the smart guy. But the dude
Mhm.
was a year older than me. Obviously, he's
Right.
going to be in better classes than I'm in and what it needs to be.
Mhm.
So at one point, the competition with me just wanting the golden boy title, and obviously we
Mhm.
didn't use that phrase, but I'm just like an easy way
Yeah.
for me to explain it.
Mhm.
I started taking summer classes and night classes so I could skip a grade. And I started
Mm.
skipping classes and like getting to that point once I got to high school. And I remember clear as day this like canon event in my life. My grandparents thought I stole my cousin's textbook.
Wow.
And they yelled at me. They're like, "Why are you reading this?" I think I remember getting slapped. It's like, "Why are you reading this book? This isn't for you. You're not smart enough to have this book. This is for him."
Mm.
And I'm fighting and arguing because I'm like, "No, no, it really is my book. Like this is like open the front page. My name's on it." They're like,
Mhm.
"You wrote your name on your cousin's book. How dare you do this?" Like all
Right.
this whole thing. I remember it being like a 3 hour yell fest. And then my cousin comes home from whatever karate class or whatever he was at. And he's like,
Mhm.
"That's not my book. Here's my book." And he pulls out his book. And they're just looking like total dumbfoundedness. How could I possibly be in the same class as my cousin?
Right.
And so they called my parents, like, "Yeah, it's true. This is really the class that he's in," like so on and so
Mhm.
forth. So then, like, I think at some point it wasn't about making my parents proud with my academic achievements, but that
Mhm.
trust must have been built somewhere with them based on
Yeah.
performance or wherever where they kind of let go. Because I
Right.
didn't really fight academics growing up.
Mhm.
And
Right.
then when it came out to competing with cousins and then eventually competing with classmates,
Mhm.
uh, I think at some point in high school it changed where it was more about, all right, well, there's a hot girl in this class. Let me make sure I'm in this class so I could like sit next to that hot girl. And I was the kid who skipped a grade, right? So like I didn't really have access to the girls of my grade because I wasn't really with them. I was always talking to girls, right? And like
Older girls.
Ani, my balls hadn't dropped yet, and I'm like trying to talk to girls that are in my classes, and it's difficult, right? But
Right. Right. Right.
I think it was just like, all right, let me impress them with how smart I am. Obviously, they could care
Mhm.
less at that grade, right? But
Right.
it was just me not knowing any better. Only child, didn't have anyone to give me advice.
Mm.
And then when it
Mm.
came to college, it was more about survival mode, like being able to graduate without increasing your expenses. So I graduated in 3 years instead of four, so I could save a whole year of college tuition.
Got it.
And
Mhm.
then after that, I think learning for the rest of my life has just been one of those things where I'm driven to have answers for everyone around me
You
because I feel like
find
people come to me for answers.
do you think you're a perfectionist?
100%.
Okay.
100%. But I'm not a
Mhm.
perfectionist that needs to be at 100. I
Okay.
need to get to like 95 and then I'm good. And then
Okay.
I'll move on to the next thing I want to learn, how to get to 95. And then I'm
Got
good.
it.
I'll move on to the next one. And then all of a
Mhm.
sudden, I know enough that I'm always one of the most entertaining people in the room. And I
Mhm.
thrive and live on that.
Right. That and I asked you that the perfectionist thing is because I found that when we depending on certain things that happened when we were younger, we would need to be perfectionists in order to feel worthy of the certain things. So that's why I asked you, were you a perfectionist? Because you sound like your competition, your competitive spirit was based on, for one thing, I think is a lot of confidence, which is great. Like you said, and this could be where you said you're 5 years old, you were the head of the house. You had this confidence that it gave you that, and that which is really pretty cool. Did you go to a very competitive college where everyone was as smart as you, or were you still like the top of the math class type of thing?
That's a good question. So I think growing up, it wasn't until high school that there was real competition, right? Because now
Hmm.
there's another kid who could be valedictorian and so on and so forth. But at that
Okay.
point in my life, I had switched to caring more about girls than grades. And so
Mm.
it wasn't really the thing that like drove me to get like a 4.0 because I could get a
Got it.
3.8 without trying. Right.
Okay.
I could study the night before a test and crush it. And I would just keep doing all the things that I would do.
Mm.
Granted, I probably didn't make the best decisions in every possible situation that I was in.
Right.
But in college, I actually felt like I learned more than I did in high school because I think
Hmm.
the college curriculum is drastically different from what they teach you in high school. Right
For
down to
sure.
American history, they teach you it really wasn't Christopher Columbus who came here and did all the things that he
Right.
did. Right, it was the Vikings and so on and so forth. And then like the fact that I was actually engaged in the content and because I
Hmm.
cared and I wanted to learn, I think that's what
Right.
drove me to care at that point.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Now, see that I'm listening and I'm saying that you were and this is probably why you are who you are now. You are a unique individual in regards to your journey, right? You had an innate desire to be at the top of wherever it was. So like that 95%, you had to be up there. It didn't matter. Once you got to 95, you knew you were in that A class. That was it. That was enough, right? But it drove you every step. Obviously, for you to create all of these businesses, like when you were in business, how did it feel when you were in business? Did you feel like when you said you created these, when you were part of these $100 million companies, $100 million move, acquisition, things of that nature, were you now finding yourself amongst peers who were the same in terms of their uh, veracity for success?
Yeah.
And did you find yourself now competing still to be, that perfectionist, with that perfectionist still pushing you to the top of that at that point as well?
So I think rejection is what pushed me
Mm,
more often than not, and that's probably part of the story that I haven't really dove into. I think
mm-hmm,
early on, rejection from my grandparents is what drove me to wanting to be number one,
mm-hmm.
and me trying to achieve love because what I was seeing was the person who was number one got that love.
Right, right.
Later on, that whole idea of like, tell me I can't, and then watch me show you that I can, right? And like the whole memes and the empowering and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm,
I got I definitely got a cortisol bump whenever there was a scenario where someone's like, "You can't do that." I'm like, "Well, the
right,
impossible is only impossible until someone does it, right?"
right,
And
right.
so I don't know. I don't find as much joy in accomplishing the impossible anymore, but I do
Mm-hmm,
find a lot of joy in proving someone wrong or proving myself right, right? And I'm sure
right.
that stems from the trauma from childhood rejection and so on
Mm-hmm,
and so forth.
mm-hmm.
Uh, I mean, I remember the longest relationship of my earlier life prior to meeting the love of my life and my wife, who
Yeah.
is definitely putting me on the couch for talking about this story. But she essentially broke up with me, and the excuse she used was I didn't make enough money. But
Really?
secretly, I was a millionaire. I just had everything tied down in my investments and businesses and everything I was doing. But
Mm-hmm,
like your credit cards would default sometimes because you're at the
right.
restaurant, but like it's maxed out for whatever reason, and so on and so
Mm-hmm.
forth. But I do remember getting the phone call where I was like, I was wrong about you, and I do remember I couldn't explain the level of joy of like that's right, you were wrong about
Right.
me, how that made me feel.
Right.
Oh
Right.
man, I'm gonna
I,
grab
and I,
that pillow and that blanket and enjoy that couch after this episode comes out. But
yeah.
it's okay.
No,
It's worth sharing the story.
listen. But she didn't get the prize. Your wife got the prize. Your
She
wife
sure
got the
did.
prize. So she got the prize. So the other one she missed out. She should have been more humble. But this is it's so strange how much we desire to be validated, because that's really what that comes to, right? Like you want to be validated for all your worth. And it seems as if you got it and you did it, which is a huge accomplishment for you to, and then not even, but you didn't let it destroy you, because I've seen it destroy people. I've seen it actually destroy people. So you must have had what is your spiritual center like in order for you to, because it has to be a balance. Something had to balance you from not going over the deep end of becoming like a narcissist, right? Because you had all of the accolades that could have caused you to be a narcissist. So what did you have as a balance or tether you to humility or humbleness that didn't allow you to go that far?
Okay, I'll keep it real. I was not a humble person for a very long time.
Really?
I think
Okay.
losing everything really set me straight. The level of
Mm,
EQ that I'm approaching the conversation with today, I really didn't earn until I was 32. Like I'd lost everything and I had to rebuild myself into who I am. I even have tattoos that will remind me about humility and things like that because it's a core weakness I turn into a strength. But dude, I was a kid from New Jersey who was DJing at the biggest possible clubs you could imagine. I
hmm.
had access to the girls because I figured out how to have game. I was a
Right.
smooth talker. I was a salesman. I had good grades without trying. I had no reason not to be cocky.
Right.
But rejection always set me straight to a point of like me stabilizing back down and then realizing I needed to grind harder because like I was getting too comfortable that this rejection could even happen at this point.
Got it.
And then now having gone through the rock bottom moments or the worst rock bottom moment of my life, I recognized that I had to develop a different set of skills when it came to how I perceive the challenge that's in front of me.
Hmm.
The previous challenge was how do I climb to the top? The current challenge is how do I be strong enough that I can protect everyone around me
I like.
so that I'm not the reason that anyone around me falls ever again.
Got it. I like that. Did you take that? Your person was that? Did you take that personally when you lost everything? Did you take that and like? Did you wear everybody else's pain and frustration when that happened?
Yeah, 100%.
Mm,
I mean, I played a role in how things went down because I had the strength to stop it. I
mm,
had taken some easy roads because I was tired of fighting. And so I wasn't able to stop the things that went wrong. And
gotcha.
so I took on all that responsibility and all that pain and all that burden. And I really thought I was a bad person. I really put myself in that position where you would look at a murderer, like you've crossed that threshold. You could never not be a murderer.
Right.
I was like, look, hundreds of people lost their jobs because of decisions that I made or inability to act because I lost that power to act in certain situations or whatever, however we want to look at it. And it took me a very, very long time to let that chip go.
Right.
And it took me a very long time to let those rejection chips go when I was younger. And,
Hmm.
after 6 years of therapy, I think I've figured out a good chunk of it, but I'm still learning to like
Right.
where this all, else needs to go. And especially now with wanting to start a family and understand how that none of those chips are allowed to continue in my life because it's going to cause a serious
Yeah.
detriment to the next generation.
For
But
sure. For sure.
yeah, no, man, I was super cocky as a kid,
Yeah.
but I could back it up. So it was like, it was okay to an extent.
Right. Right. So yeah, I can see now that when you express it that way, like I see a young kid, DJ, popular, getting all the notoriety. I can see where the cockiness would be, but I still feel it had to be something that was tethering you. Even if you can't identify it at this moment. Because in your cockiness, like I said, you still you felt enough awareness to say to yourself, I still have to produce. I still have to go to school. You still have to, you still want to be this person, this man that's respected. You cared about what another person thought about you. Because if you were so cocky to the point where you didn't give a damn about what anybody thought, that's another level of cockiness, right? And that's where it gets dangerous. So, you know, did you meditate? Were you exercising? Were you like what was
Yeah,
your practice that you did?
I was definitely shredded throughout most of that journey. I had times where when I lost everything, I gained a lot of weight just out of like
Hmm.
depression and what it took to get back. But
Right.
I think 90s television is what like tethered me to reality, even though I was slightly
Really?
delusional. I think it was the idea that like you wanted people to want to follow you because they loved you, not because they feared you, and
Hmm.
not because they were forced to, right? Like
Got it.
they followed Zach Morris into battle on Saved by the Bell because they loved him.
Hmm.
And I think I think just watching 90s television is what kept me straight. I don't know how else to explain it, right?
No, that's interesting. That helped you because listen, we all get what we get from these different social media platforms, right? So you got another lesson that I'm sure some people who watch Zach didn't get that. So you got something that tethered you to the desire for love over fear,
No,
which
for sure.
is huge when you consider how many people have thrived off of fear alone. Like, as long as they fear me, I'm good. I don't really care about if they love me or not. But
Yeah.
so that
And
awareness in you was huge.
and like, you look at Principal Belding, you look at Carl Winslow and Family Matters, and you look at other
Mm-hmm.
TV dads, they're just lessons that you learn from 90s television that I held as core memories.
Oh, that's
And
big, man.
and maybe
Yeah.
that's part of the raising that I got from that rather than from my parents, because my parents didn't know the American side of things.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
it was definitely an interesting combination of circumstances to turn me into who I am.
Right. Right. No, but I guess that's a testament to, the individual spirit, in that way. Millions of people watch the same exact show you watched and turned out horribly. so you to so for you to watch those, we got to mesh it all together with your parents, your environment, your grandparents, your cousin being your nemesis, so to speak, right? You got to beat him out. Somehow you got to get the golden boy. All of these things you mesh together, and it created this complete individual who has accomplished these amazing things, that really I think is beautiful, because I look at those things as like a collage, it's kind of like, what makes these things come together. And this is the uniqueness of Encore. This is the uniqueness of Encore, which is why you are where you are now. You've been able to rally people around you, have a story that matters to most people, that people love and resonate with. Um, that's amazing. You're going to make an amazing father, by the way. Just talking to you, looking at your story, I would not worry as much as you think you should. You're going to make an amazing father. I'm
Thank you.
telling you, because you're aware, because you're open to questioning, asking questions, listening, and looking for the answers, knowing that you don't have them all. Watch. Your child is gonna be blessed to have you as a father. Guarantee you.
Thank you,
Guarantee
man.
you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
This has
You
been
make it.
such a different podcast than what I was expecting. I thought we were going to come here and talk about how to make money and how to invest in real estate. But this has been great, man. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. It was a pleasure to just kind of meet you, really get a chance to talk with you, and then hopefully, if one person from your audience makes a decision based on a good decision based on something that we've discussed, to me that's a win.
Yeah.
To
I mean,
avoid
for sure. My wife is listening. She's going to make the best decisions after watching this podcast. And that's what we're going to
right.
count on. At this point, I'm
Yes.
like, all right, I did the crime. I should just be ready for the sofa. I should
Right,
just go
right, right.
all in at this point, right?
Yeah, put the blanket on. Put the blanket on the couch. I'll be home. I'll deal with it when I get there. Right? No, she'll be. Listen, she should be proud to know that you've come through what you've come through. She should be proud of that. Honestly.
So, Ani, we got to wrap this up. How do people follow you on social media? Because I'm sure more people want to hear about your journey and your discoveries and everything that goes with it.
Absolutely. Well, appreciate it. Well, you can follow me at Sins of the Father _ on Instagram, and Sins of the Father dash Ani dash I am on YouTube. We also have a program called Purpose Ways that my partner and I are doing, which is a wellness and a mindset program that basically is founded on pillars of spirituality, education, resilience, mindset, and it really helps to develop people. So I would just say, if anybody is interested in following and finding out more about what we're doing, please just visit us at, you can look at Purpose Ways, and you can also look, like I said, look at Ani, Sins of the Father at Ani dash I am.
Well, guys, you guys heard it from him directly. And if you hated everything that we said on this podcast, jump in the comments, tell us that you hated it and why you hated it, because we are open-minded enough to listen.
Yes,
I'll respond back. I promise. All the hate comments, all the love comments, all of it. I'm sure Ani will too. And we'll see where this conversation goes.
Absolutely. And listen, I want to thank you, Encore, for having me on. It's really a pleasure to talk to you and just really get a chance to really kind of meet you and learn a little bit more about you. It's been a pleasure. I really thank you for that opportunity.
It goes both ways, man. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode.